I just sold my company, just turned 35, and instead of knowing what to do next, I actually felt completely naked. For more than 4 years, my entire life was that business. Every morning I woke up, there was a long list of to-dos that never seemed to get shorter. There's inventory, product releases, the next problem to solve. And then suddenly, all that didn't exist anymore. The sale was completed and the money was in the bank. But I had no idea what to do with myself. So I bought a ticket to Europe and was expecting to travel for the next 3 months through Spain, Portugal, Poland, France, wherever I've ever been to before, and sparked an interest. The itinerary was open and there was a lot of space in between to explore. When I landed in Europe, it felt surreal. It reminded me of the feeling that I had when I first stepped out of the doors at my accounting job. I was stepping into something unknown. Starting a business from scratch is not easy, and I knew that no one would be telling me what to do next. I felt like I was a rudderless boat floating in the ocean, except this time there was just a lot less pressure. The one thing that surprised me the most was actually I felt a sense of guilt. I come from a working class family. My father had worked pretty much his entire life and only retired 2 years prior. My mom was still working as a nurse then. I was sitting there in Europe for the next 3 months with absolutely no itinerary, and I kept asking myself, did I deserve this? Had I actually earned it? This sense of guilt kept eating away at me during the first couple of weeks of the trip. I think a lot of people who come from similar backgrounds as myself would have a similar feeling, this feeling of guilt, as though financial freedom isn't something that happens to people like us. Like you've somehow found a loophole or cheat code in this game of life, and you're not actually supposed to access it. I didn't go on this trip alone. I traveled with someone, and I'll keep who that is private, but I will say that it didn't work out between us. What I can say though is traveling with someone for 3 months will tell you everything about yourself and what it takes in a relationship to make it work. And sometimes that road is best taken alone, and you need that experience to know what it means to be a good communicator, a good travel partner, and a good partner or friend. And I learned a lot along that trip. So our first stop was in northern Spain. I was going to be doing something that I'd never done before, walk along the Camino de Santiago. It was for many a spiritual pilgrimage, but for me, it was more about finding a little bit more about myself. At that time, I had no idea what would be coming next. And I would hope that the next 100 kilometers of this 825-kilometer northern route would give me at least a glimpse of what it would look like. Out there on the trail, away from the stress of deadlines, the pinging of messages, the constant string of emails, I actually just got to enjoy the moment. And that week set the tone for the rest of the trip. As the weeks went by, I started to notice something shift quietly in myself. I stopped thinking about inventory and product releases and the next problem to solve. And in that space came something that I hadn't really made room for in the years prior. It was just being present. Sometimes I would just wake up and enjoy a sunrise, or I'd sit at a coffee shop and strike a conversation with a random stranger about nothing in particular. It was one of those things where in the moment, it kind of passes you by. But it was the first time where I got to notice that enjoying the moment is part of the process. What I realized was how much I'd forgotten, how much I enjoyed learning and growing without a specific purpose. For years, every book I read, every conversation I had, every networking event that I went to was in service of the business or achieving the next milestone or the next goal. And here I was just being curious for no reason other than just to feel good about being open and curious about the situation. And what surprised me most was that I didn't discover something new about myself. It was actually the opposite. This was just laying dormant inside myself this entire time, and having the freedom and the time and the space to explore these things was what I needed. I still gravitated towards the things I always did, which was training, exploring, having conversations, and learning from other people. So finding people that had similar interests was everything that I needed. It was just having the ability to be away from the constant stress of every day or the business that allowed me to explore those interests. When I came home from Europe, I didn't come back as a different person. I was just clearer and more present, and I was ready to share that with the people that mattered most to me. One of those people was my father. But what happened next changed everything. If you found me from my first video, I appreciate you sticking around. This is the part of the story that most people don't tell. I think it's the most important part, and I really appreciate you learning more about my story. This is my life on easy mode.